Welcome to the Forbes Japan DX Summit. And thank you very much for all joining us today. This is a closing keynote session in partnership with JDA, Japan Deep Learning Association. My name is Takashi Takekawa, a founder and CEO of the edtech startup called 021, a member of JDLA, and I will be moderating this session today. Today, we have distinguished guests from the US and Japan, both of whom are the leading authorities not only in the academia, but also in the business field, leading DX, digital transformation through AI in the US and in Japan, and in many cases, globally, in fact. Let me briefly introduce each of them. First, from Japan, Dr. Yutaka Matsuo, a professor at Tokyo University, whose main research field is on AI, especially on deep learning. He also serves as the chairperson of JDLA, Japan Deep Learning Association, a board member of SoftBank Group, as well as board members and advisors of several deep learning startups in Japan. I usually call him Matsuo Sensei, but for today's session, which will be only in English, I will call him Yutaka for my first time, in fact. Thank you for joining today, Yutaka.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you briefly share with us what kind of startups you are helping these days?
Yeah, of course. To name a few, Parkshoe Technology, which is already listed, is using deep learning for many business applications. DeepX is using deep learning for construction equipment such as excavators. And ACES is using deep learning also for business in the collaboration with advertisement agency. They are using image recognition to extract the characteristic of baseball players. And ELIZA, they are using natural language. And they have just released a system to summarize long sentences into 3 lines. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So you are helping a lot of startups that will, change Japan and probably global. Thank you. Second, I am very honored to introduce to you the distinguished guest from the US, Dr. Andrew Ning, a founder of DeepLearning.ai located on the West Coast. He is also a CEO of Landing AI, a managing general partner at AI Fund, a chairman and co-founder of Coursera, and an adjunct professor at Stanford University. As a pioneer both in machine learning and online education, he has changed countless lives through his work in AI, authoring or co-authoring over 200 research papers in machine learning, robotics, and related fields. Previously, he was a chief scientist at Baidu, the founding lead of the Google Brain team, and the co-founder of Coursera. He now focuses his time primarily on his entrepreneurial ventures, looking for the best way to accelerate reasonable AI practices in the larger global economy. Andrew, great to have you here today.
Thank you. Konnichiwa, yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Great. How come your Japanese are so fluent? When and where did you study Japanese?
When I was growing up in Singapore, I took 4 years of Japanese classes. Unfortunately, living in the United States, my level of Japanese, which was never high, has just been continually going down. But I hope that maybe if I spend more time with Matsuo Sensei, maybe he can teach me a little bit more Japanese over time.
Great. And after COVID, after COVID-19, I hope that you can actually fly over to Japan and spend some time here.
Yeah, that would be great fun. I've not been there for over 2 years now, but
okay.
I was working with some of our local partners in Japan. So if you hope to do that again soon.
Okay. よろしくお願いします。Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let us begin with the main theme for this session, AI as a core technology for DX, digital transformation. In the last few years, the word DX has growingly become one of the biggest keywords in Japan when talking about businesses. DX is now everywhere in Japan, in fact. Yutaka, could you please give us a brief overview of what has been going on in Japan in relation to DX?
Sure. In Japan, the keyword DX has been gaining momentum over the past few years. On this September 1st, the Japanese government launched the digital agency. Their goal is to digitize the Japanese government's administrative services and improve the efficiency of the government's core systems. Over the past few years, the manufacturing industries, including the Toyota and Panasonic and many others, has been quick to recognize the potential of AI and has been transforming itself. But recently, finance, insurance, and trading companies, they all have been accelerating their DX activities. One of the main focus is how to create DX talent. So maybe they are interested in this session.
Thank you very much, Yutaka. Yeah, well, DX is everywhere in Japan, as I said. And we will even have a digital day, actually, which will be on October 10th and 11th, consisting of just 0 and 1, right? Mm-hmm. So again, the DX is everywhere in Japan. What about the situation in the States, Andrew? My understanding is that DX has never become such a big keyword in the US as it is now in Japan. If that is the case, is it because DX is nothing special for the US companies, which like so obvious that they have never needed to emphasize on specifically? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is very good that the Japanese government is playing such a strong leadership role, encouraging companies in Japan to embrace DX. In the United States, many companies have talked about the digital transformation, more the phrase digital transformation than DX. And I think many companies in many industries have been working on this concept for many years. But where I see a lot of companies now is having put in some amount of IT and data infrastructure, which is going to be a long journey. We never seem to have enough data, or IT infrastructure is never good enough. But one of the challenges I see a lot of companies in the US and in Japan and around the world facing is, now that we have some IT and data infrastructure, how can we collect this data? How can we take the data we have and put it to good use? And often the emerging AI tools are a way to do that. One mistake that I see many CEOs make is, a few CEOs have actually come to me and said, hey, Andrew, give me 2 more years, then I'll have this fantastic IT and I will work on AI then. And I think, as Professor Matsuo and I have often chatted in our conversations, this is almost always a mistake, because no one's IT infrastructure is ever good enough. And it's actually better for most companies in the US and in Japan to take the data you have, try to create the quick wins and create value, and then use the lessons you learn from that to keep on improving the IT infrastructure. I think a lot of American companies are still on the journey, but I think every smart CEO in a Fortune 500 company, I think, has embraced digitalization, but the journey is one that maybe is not going to end for a long time, if ever.
Thanks. Again, DX started to becoming a keyword in Japan, but also in the States, as I heard from you, Andrew. But when actually did the US companies started talking about, DX? Again, in Japan, it was like a few years ago at the most. But what about in the States? Is it from the 10 years ago, or is it really recent, or?
Yeah, the term digital transformation, people in the US call it digital transformation instead of DX, but the term digital transformation, it's been around for so long, I don't even remember when it started. Definitely much more than I think 10 years ago. But I feel like it's still hard, if you look at the internet has been around for how many decades? I think that we're still figuring out how different businesses can use the internet. And this is a many decades old technology. One of the exciting things about the DX in the US and in Japan is that the technology advances so fast, and the new technologies from internet communications mobile, cloud, AI, these technologies seem to come almost even faster than businesses can absorb them and rethink their workflows and processes. So with the latest technology wave, which is the rapid rise of AI algorithms, I think that companies now have another thing to factor into their DX strategy.
All right, thanks, Andrew. Then we would like to move on talking about the role of AI in facilitating and accelerating DX within the company and organization. Andrew, would you agree with me saying that the AI is really the core technology for DX? Would you agree on that, and why?
Yeah, I think it is one core technology for DS. What has happened over the last 20 years is with the rise of digitalization and cloud and mobile, companies have the capability of collecting a lot more data than ever before. And whereas consumer internet companies like Google, Baidu, Microsoft, Facebook were sort of leading the way, the ability to collect data is now there for everything from a manufacturing plant to a healthcare system to a shipping conglomerate to almost, lots of companies now have computers and data capabilities. From a business standpoint, now that we have the ability to collect all this data, there is in every industry, every large industry, the opportunity to use AI to create tremendous value. In manufacturing, I'm doing a lot of work on automatic vision inspection, inspecting manufactured objects for defects. And given Japan's large manufacturing industry, I hope this will be useful to Japan. Or in maritime shipping, one of AI Fund's portfolio companies, Bearing AI, has been working with Mitsui on optimizing fuel for ships. And this has a tremendous economic and environmental impact. In healthcare, I think that healthcare systems can now use AI to read digital electronic health records to help treat patients better. So what I'm seeing is that whereas AI had first taken off in consumer internet companies that had a lot of technology and the data capability now exists in all major industries and almost to stay competitive on a global scale. Because, if you're not doing it, your competitors certainly are. I think every major industry, every large company has a urgency to figure out how to use AI capabilities to use the data to create value.
Thank you for that. So AI is definitely one of the key, technologies, one of the key technologies facilitating DX. You mentioned that. What about the other technologies, other than AI, what other technology are one of the cores for facilitating DX?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like the rise of cloud and mobile, edge computing, including new hardware devices, including AI accelerators, but also low power devices. I think the rise of new forms of networking, including 5G, but also all the different ways that we've managed to speed up communications. I think cloud storage, new database technology, all of these things has allowed much more data and devices and people and sites to be connected. And that creates the data that allows AI to make decisions. And then also to push the decisions back out to the different parts of an organization to drive it to action. One of the other, maybe not the technology, one of the hardest things about DX, the technology is hard, but I think the other thing that's hard is rethinking the workflows and the people and the change management. And this is why I think Matsuo Sensei and I, we both think a lot about the importance of education, because in addition to technology, we need so many people to know how to think about the technology, to re-engineer the workflow, to bring it to fruition, that educating a large number of people about this seems critical. So that's why I've actually, from the United States, watched with very, very deep respect a lot of the work of JDLA, as well as been privileged to have collaborated with Matsuo Sensei and JDLA on some things.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the education, later. But going back to the original question, Yutaka, would you also agree with me saying that the AI is the core technology for DX?
Yeah, I agree. I also think that AI is one of the most important core technologies for DX. And maybe AI is expanding the possibility of DX tremendously. Let's look at the input. We have image recognition, OCR, voice recognition, and so on and so forth. For processing, we have natural language using deep learning, various kinds of prediction models, anomaly detection, and so on. And for output, we can generate images, generate natural language sentences, or even control robots. So AI is making all of this possible in new way and greatly improve the accuracy. So maybe it's a very important core technology.
Okay, thanks very much. So both of you agree with the idea that the AI is one of the core technology for facilitating DX. Then we would like to learn from the real examples. Andrew, could you share with us a few cases where the companies or the organization have successfully utilized the AI in facilitating the DX? Any good example in the States?
You know, I think it's easy to forget that even the companies we think of today as great AI companies like Google once had to go through a bit of a maybe not quite digital transformation, but certainly AI transformation. When I was starting the Google Brain team many years ago, back then everyone was actually skeptical, including people in Google, about deep learning. And so I remember one of my first projects was working on speech recognition, where my team worked with Google's speech team to improve the quality of speech recognition at Google. And that wasn't the most valuable project. It's not web search or advertising. But being able to deliver that quick win allowed more people in Google to understand the power of deep learning. And that first success allowed me to set up my second major collaboration, which turned out to be with Google Maps, where we use computer vision OCR to read house numbers on Google Street View images to more accurately locate people's houses in buildings in Google Maps. It was only after that second project, being successful, that I could then start a more serious conversation with the online ads team, which then clearly has a much more direct impact on revenue. So even for the great AI companies today, I think there was a process of having the organization learn about and adopt AI technologies. But even while consumer internet companies, like Google, were well ahead of the curve, I see this type of journey being played out in many other companies. Tech companies, software internet companies seem to be on average more advanced, but then I'm now seeing also healthcare companies and industrial manufacturing companies and media companies starting to embrace that type of digital journey and AI journey more and more.
Thanks, Andrew. What do you think, Yutaka? Any good ones in Japan as well?
Yeah, let me introduce some interesting example in real world application. One example seen at DCON, which is a deep learning contest for technical college in Japan, organized by JDLA, is the creation of a fish sorting machine that uses deep learning to distinguish between different kinds of fish and automatically sorts them. Another example is the development of a device that uses deep learning to read the water stress level of plants like oranges and apples, and automatically control the amount of water to increase the sugar content to make it sweeter. So those are some interesting examples.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for both of you, sharing with us some examples. Then let's move on to the next topic: AI for everyone. AI as a key literacy for everyone today. From the discussion so far, we understand that the AI is really playing the key role in facilitating the DX. We then would like to move on, talking about the talents who will lead the AI or DX projects and how we train them. Andrew, I believe that that you have been the global leader in training and developing the AI talents over the last 10 years at least, ever since you started making your computer science course at Stanford open for anyone online, and co-founding the Coursera, and then founding your current startup, DeepLearning.ai. How would you summarize the last 10 years of your education journey?
When I think about the last 10 years, I tend to think not about my journey, but about the journey of the millions of learners around the world that have been picking up AI. So I find it very inspiring that so many people all around the world, in the United States and Japan, are spending their precious time going online to take these classes, to watch these videos, to do the quizzes, to then go home with the knowledge that allows them to build AI systems or make strategic decisions about AI. And I am actually very inspired by the number of people that worked hard, sometimes evenings, sometimes weekends, sometimes their day jobs, to learn these things, and then to do amazing things with these technologies that I certainly would never have imagined them doing. So I think that one interesting thing about Japan's always had a very strong hardware ecosystem. Compared to other countries, Japan has always been very advanced in hardware. And I think this gives Japan a very unique position from which to also build up and strengthen the software base and to embrace more AI.
So just a following up question. So from your experience, have you seen many cases where AI talent trainings have really made the companies more innovative and more competitive in the market? Have you seen the strong connection between the training and the company's actual performance?
Yeah, I think there are many such examples. Again, just to make sure everyone watching this realizes that you can train up yourself and your talent workforce. Most people forget that even Google had to learn AI at some point. In fact, when I started the Google Brain team, one of the first things I did was teach a class in Google on deep learning. And I think that helped, the company move forward a bit faster. Fortunately today, with the rise of, digital online content and other resources, you don't need me to show up in person to teach a class. With online resources, it's actually much more inexpensive and much more efficient to let lots of people, watch videos at home or in the office or something and learn these things. In the US, I've seen quite a few companies. I don't know if I have permission to name them, but I'm thinking of a few companies. For example, very creative digital media types of companies, which had thousands of employees take online courses. And in the subsequent years, I actually saw tons of innovation, lots of bottom-up ideas, application of AI and machine learning projects. There's actually one government that I can't name the government, but there's actually one president, and he and his entire presidential cabinet actually took AI for everyone. And I actually saw in the next few years that, I saw them write much more thoughtful regulation. So whether it's the leadership of a company or the executive staff, all the way up to C-suite or the leader of a leadership of a country, or many more thousands of employees in a company, I have seen many cases of people learning about AI and then applying these new technologies to their business, and this causing a flourishing of very creative ideas that moves the business forward.
Thank you, Andrew. Sounded like the education and training really works well, not just in the company level, but also in the country level that you mentioned. So let's then look at the situation in Japan. Yutaka, you are the leader in Japan, writing several best-selling books on AI and founding the JDLA in 2017. Can you share with us why you initially founded the JDLA, Japan Deep Learning Association, and how it has been building the ecosystem of training the AI talents in Japan?
Yes. I was convinced that deep learning was going to have a huge impact. But not early as Andrew said, but I think it became very clear at least in 2012. So in 2015, I started a deep learning course, a lecture course at University of Tokyo. And many of our graduates are very active in various fields. And some of them have launched successful startups, as I said before. And so I would like to expand this kind of movement. In particular, I thought it would be important for the healthy development of the industry to create some kind of qualification for AI, because we can all say that we are working on AI, and there is an old saying that bad money drives out good. So there should be some qualification system. So that's the main idea of how we established the JDLA. We have created two courses. One is G-test and the other is E-exam. And over 60,000 people have already taken the G-test, and nearly 4,000 people have passed the E-exam. So these successful candidates have also created a large community of 40,000 people called CEDO, Community of Deep Learning Evangelists. And this number is large, but not large for the entire country. So in order to further expand the scope of the program, we have translated Andrew Sensei's AI for Everyone to Japanese recently, and attracted many people so far.
Great. Thank you for your explanation, Yutaka. So the AI for Everyone, the course that Yutaka just mentioned, was originally developed and released by DeepLearning.ai in 2018, I guess. And it has been taken by almost 700,000 learners globally up until now. Andrew, can you share with us what made you to develop the course for everyone, although your primary focus seems to have been the engineering talents?
For AI to reach its full potential, I think we need engineers, but also non-technical individuals to play a huge role. AI is now so widespread; it affects pretty much everyone. That and so I think it's important that business leaders and people in all sorts of other functional roles understand what the technology is, what it can and cannot do, what are meaningful projects. And also so that they can work successfully with an AI team and have realistic expectations. I was once visiting one of Landing AI's customers, where we had a conversation in which the customer was asking me, "Hey Andrew, can you build a self-driving car with 6 engineers in about a year?" And I said, "No, I don't think I know how to do that." And they actually said, "No, look, just get your 6 people to work harder. Why can't you work harder?" So my team and I then spent about a day basically going over the AI for Everyone material with them. And we went back into brainstorming the next day. And I remember the next morning when we started to brainstorm new projects, it was night and day difference, because all of us collectively had a shared vision for what AI can and cannot do. And in just a few hours, we then decided we're not going to build a self-driving car, with 6 engineers in a year, but instead we wound up picking some of the very meaningful projects to execute on. So I think business leaders that understand AI will be able to make much better decisions. And given that AI is in the process of, through DX, transforming every industry, I think it's important for leaders in all functions, or individuals in all functions, to understand how this will affect your roles, your company, also your individual life. So just like computers now affect everyone, AI is getting to a point where it's affecting everyone. And having a broad base of knowledge will allow all of us collectively as a society to make much better decisions.
Thanks. Yeah. So hopefully, more and more learners will be also taking the AI for Everyone, going forward. So the new Japan edition of AI for Everyone was developed in collaboration between DeepLearning.ai and JDLA, and released in May this year, and taken by over 10,000 Japanese learners within just a month or so after the release. Yutaka, can you share with us again why the JDLA decided to focus on educating everyone and pick the AI for everyone?
I don't think I need to explain much, but I think Andrew Sensei's lecture have always been the most accessible and most globally influential content. Actually, I was a visiting scholar in Stanford from 2005 to 2007, and then I was attending Andrew Sensei's machine learning class, which is very popular worldwide. And from this machine learning lecture to deep learning Coursera lecture to the recent AI for everyone, and even for example, the ML ops, they are great contents, and there's no explanation why we pick Andrew Sensei's lecture. And I think the great thing about Andrew Sensei's lecture is that he is verbalizing and structuring what everyone thinks is important, but no one ever has been able to verbalize. So if possible, Andrew Sensei, could you share why you can continuously create these wonderful content so many years?
And do you have any comments as to why you are able to make your contents in a very easy to understand manner? What kind of process are you taking, and why you are so super capable?
No, thank you, both Masayo Sensei and Takao-san for your remarks. I don't think I'm that capable. I feel like when I'm teaching online, I tend to wake up in the morning and ask myself what's best for the learner, and just try to share the information, or write the letters in the batch, our weekly newsletter, or try to teach the lessons in AI for everyone or other courses that I think is helpful to the learner. And I hope I feel like I've been really privileged to have so many learners willing to spend their precious time to learn these materials.
Yeah, thank you very much. For those who have not yet registered for the course AI for Everyone, I strongly recommend to do so now, as you can learn from both of today's distinguished speakers. So lastly, but most importantly, we would like to know how Japan can succeed in facilitating and accelerating the DX, both in the organizational level and the country level going forward. Andrew, can you please tell us one or two secrets from the successful example in the world or in the States? What made companies or organizations successful in DX?
Yeah, maybe I'll share a few thoughts. One, I think as we've discussed, education is important. So a very good first step is to go take AI for everyone, learn these things, and enable creative brainstorming. A second thing that I found to be important is community. None of us can do this by ourselves. So I think that with organizations like JDLA and this growing community of individuals in Japan working on deep learning, that open sharing of ideas, helping each other out for no reason other than you just want to help someone out, that community shared learning, I really believe that for most of us, we either win together or we don't win at all. So having that open sharing community will accelerate the rise of AI in Japan. Three, I would encourage companies to spec out and go for quick wins. I've seen a lot of companies fail by going too big, then fail by going too small. Just like my first project at Google was speech recognition. I think for a lot of companies, sometimes the CEO will wonder, why are you doing this project? It's not going to move the needle for the business. But the purpose of the first project can be to gain the learnings to let you do the second bigger project and then the third bigger project. So I think it is sometimes very valuable if there are sometimes even bottom-up ideas. It allows you to execute a quick win, get just a little bit of ROI, and use that to capture the learnings to then do the even bigger project. And then finally, number five, the last one is, I think government support and government leadership has a huge role to play. So I've been following some of the investments that the Japanese government has been making in DX. I find that very encouraging. Even in the United States, government funding really helped contribute to the rise of deep learning. A lot of people have forgotten this, but I find that government with visibility to convene means that it can accelerate the adoption of AI. And in the case of Japan, Japan has many industries where it has tremendous strength. I think if I were building something in Japan, I would really heavily lean toward playing in these places where Japan is already strong. So, take manufacturing or take Japan's very advanced hardware ecosystem. All the industries where Japan is strong, it may be easier for someone in Japan to add AI to those verticals that's already strong than for someone in, say, Silicon Valley in the United States to build something because that industry just isn't as strong in the United States. So, there are already some very good web search engines. I don't think Japan needs to build its own. Maybe someone could do it, but where Japan is a unique competitive advantage is to take AI and marry it with the industries where Japan is already very strong. So with that, I think there's a lot of potential given Japan's strong technical talent, a very strong industrial base to build a lot of unique AI capabilities that are frankly quite hard for other companies to match.
Thank you. So education, community, and starting small, but gaining quick wins, small wins, and the government support are all the keywords. Key for the successful DX. What do you think, Yutaka? What do you think is the most important for Japan?
I think it's important to have an attitude and culture that is willing to change. It's not that difficult to learn about technologies such as AI and deep learning. You can start watching AI for everyone from today. But I think the most important thing is the attitude to change business, workflow, organization, and company culture to adapt to the new era.
Thank you. So this is the last question for today for both of you. Can you give us, final few words, hopefully the encouraging message to today's audience, mainly managers and business professionals from the Japanese companies? Andrew, please.
Sure. I think AI is the new electricity. Much like the rise of electricity started about 100 years ago, it transformed every industry. AI will now do the same. And I think that it is incumbent on all of us as individuals, members of society, also business leaders, in the case of many of you watching this, to do the best we can to learn about the technology and help flesh it out in terms of how it affect citizens in our businesses and how to steer it for the benefit of everyone. So given that AI is such a large and disruptive force, I hope all of you, if there's still any doubts at all in your mind, to start making the investments to learn about this and figure out how this will affect you and your businesses and your society. Because I think collectively, with all of us together, I hope we can use this to create a lot of value to make everyone much better off.
Thank you. Yutaka, please.
Today I was very honored to have Andrew Sensei here and who has the best view of AI in the world. I think that Japanese companies have a lot to learn from him, and I would be very grateful if he could get more involved with Japanese companies and Japanese communities.
Thank you. I'm very excited to hear that. I hope there will be opportunities. Thank you, Matsuo Sensei. I'm very honored.
Great. Thank you very much for both of you for this wonderful session today. And thank you for all watching and listening this keynote from all over Japan. I personally learned a lot from both of you today, and I hope that everyone else watching this did also learn something from the session. Again, if you want to learn more, you should be taking the Japan version of the AI for Everyone first, and you will be able to be with Andrew and Yutaka for another 5 to 6 hours, through the online program. With that, thank you very much again, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you.